Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin, alongside Chris Falmo, eating a fucking chicken tender. How you doing, my friend?
You're a dick. I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good, bro. How's that chicken tender?
It was good. It was good after a long day of work.
Absolutely. Oh man, I love how this is starting off, man. It's a lot better. First off, I want to say to everyone, we did miss last week. Lately, we have not been feeling well. It's the season. We're getting a little sick. I didn't really have a voice. So sorry for last week's absence, but we are back this week for Let's Talk Football.
Sorry, guys.
As you can tell,
As you can tell, we are both still a little under the weather, but we are here.
We are here, baby. We are here. And we did plan on having another guest this week. Our boy Ted Opoku from your job, mate.
From my job, Resort World. He's a Broncos fan. We've been friends for a little while. We've been talking football on and off. He wanted to come on, but we had a bunch of technical difficulties. But shout out to you, Ted. We will still be talking the Broncos for you for this game.
Absolutely, mate. Hey, we were really excited to have you on, brother. But we're going to dedicate this episode to you, and we're going to talk plenty of Broncos for you this week. So with that being said, let's start with our Week 13 recap. So we just get all of last week underway. And Chris Palmer, you ready for our recap?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. So let's start with the Thursday night game. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys winning 41-35. A very high-scoring game. A lot of flags in that game, but a very entertaining game nonetheless.
Yeah, I have to say, hats off to the Cowboys. They are serious. That was one of the truest victories they probably could have had this year.
Absolutely. So Cowboys have a big game next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans, with the Colts coming away with a victory in overtime, 31-28. Ooh, strong divisional win for the Colts.
Colts still fighting, man. They're scratching and clawing, trying to look at that last wild card spot.
And currently they possess that last wild card spot, so they are in the playoff race. Despite having a 3-5 start to the season, they are now 7-5, and they are picking it up, man. You love to see it. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets, with the Falcons coming away 13-8. Very rainy game. It wasn't a very flashy game, but it was a grounded pound game for the Atlanta, and that's just the way they like it.
Yeah, slow as the waves go, man. It's a slow ground and pound game out of them, and the Jets, they have no answers for anybody.
Jets are hanging on to their playoff life. They're technically not eliminated, but things are not looking good for them, especially after that loss to Atlanta. So let's move on to New Orleans, where the Detroit Lions took on the Saints, and the Lions came away with a victory, 33-28, but it was not a comfortable win by any means. New Orleans kept climbing and climbing back and made it very difficult for the Lions, but the Lions were able to pull away with a victory.
We said a couple weeks now that the Saints are one of those teams that could potentially play spoiler for a very good team. The Lions are probably not going to be one of them teams record depending, but, catch the Saints against a 500, just above 500 team, they could play that spoiler.
Yeah, Saints are holding on to their playoff hopes, but they have to beat Atlanta at some point. So we're gonna keep an eye out for them in the weeks ahead. Moving on to Houston, where the Denver Broncos took on the Houston Texans, and the Texans came away with the win, 22-17. Man, this was a very exciting game to watch. Broncos had a chance to win at the end, but there was a interception in the end zone, and Houston came away with the victory.
Hey, man, another really good win for Houston and another really good showing for the Broncos, man. It's still impressive to watch even when they lose.
Yeah, Broncos have really found their identity, but we're going to talk more of them this episode. They have a very important matchup this week against the Los Angeles Chargers, who beat the New England Patriots 6-0 last week. Another rainy game, nothing really explosive. Potential game of the year.
Simply unacceptable from the Chargers. I'm sorry. But we'll get into that when we move forward into this week. But that was simply unacceptable.
Absolutely, man. And let's move on to Pittsburgh, where your Steelers fell to the Arizona Cardinals 24-10. This game was delayed several times due to weather, but
Mm-hmm.
man, Arizona was able to kind of get themselves together and come away with the win. But man, your Steelers, man, a lot of players got injured that game.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett went down. He had to get it was some type of ankle surgery. It was the same surgery that Tua got after his last college game. The name of it defeats me, but it's technically only a 10-day recovery. He went down. Minka Fitz went down with a broken hand. He wound up returning into the game. One of our linebackers went down with a groin injury. He's now day to day. So yeah, we got pretty banged up that game, but all in all, still pretty unacceptable that we lost to a team like the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, the Cardinals are now a different team with Kyler Murray back in the fold, but you guys come to a short week. You have the New England Patriots coming to town, and you guys are banged up, and they're not playing too well. So it's going to be a very ugly week for both the Steelers and New England. Uh, but let's move on to Miami and Washington. Miami dominating Washington 45-15. Great win for the Dolphins. Another defeating loss for the Commanders.
Yeah, another tight ass weapon for the fucking Commanders, and the Dolphins do what they do best this year, and they're bullying a lot of teams. But there's a lot of skeptics going around saying that they can't do it to succeeding teams, so they're gonna this last stretch in their game in their schedule is gonna be a lot of tells. It's gonna be a lot of telling games.
I'm telling you, man. I got Week 17 circled right out of my calendar. That is Ravens Dolphins. That game is going to be huge for
That
both
game is
teams.
enormous. The Christmas Eve game, Dolphins Cowboys, is going to be astronomical.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of great games looking forward to. But let's continue on with our Week 13 recap. Let's head on over to Tampa Bay, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took care of business against the Carolina Panthers, 21-18, close game. But man, Panthers almost came away with the win, but not quite.
You see, that's almost like a breath of life in Carolina, right? Like they're playing hard enough to come up short by less than a touchdown. So use that and go into the off season. Whatever worked right there during that game, use that. Good win
With
for
their
the
interim head
Buccaneers.
coach. With their interim head coach too. This was without Frank Reich, and Panthers. There's some things to be optimistic about, but we'll get into the Panthers another day. Let's move on to what should have been the game of the week. The 49ers and Philadelphia Eagles. Uh, it was all Niners all day, 42-19. What an absolute blowout by the Niners against the Eagles.
Yep, the Niners handed the Eagles their first loss at home, and it was an unbelievable loss. I don't think anyone thought that it was going to be a blowout like that. You can pick Eagles, Niners. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be a 3-possession game.
Man, no. But I will say one thing. Debo.
I could say he's the one person that called it last year when they lost to the Eagles that if Brock was in, they would have won. So this is kind of that coming to fruition.
Debo.
That
I
man
love
went off.
Debo.
He's a dog.
He's one of my favorite players, man. I just love seeing Debo go off. Let's move on to Los Angeles, where the Cleveland Browns took on the Los Angeles Rams. But it was all Rams all day, 36-19. It was a close game for the most part, but then the Rams just broke away. This was Joe Flacco's first game as a Cleveland Brown, and I got to say he did look pretty good in the Cleveland Browns jersey. Very
Yeah,
efficient.
but it's always good to watch the Browns get their asses kicked at the end.
It is, yes.
It's always good, no matter who's at the helm.
Yes. So let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game against the Kansas City Chiefs against the Green Bay Packers, and the Green Bay Packers silencing a lot of critics, beating the Chiefs 27-19. Man, Jordan Love. Ooh, we're gonna be talking about him. He is looking great.
Yeah. Shout out Jordan Love. Something I want to shoot your way prior to this game. His first 11 starts, he is damn near identical to Aaron Rodgers in his first 11 starts
I know.
in touchdowns, passing, and record. So let's not sleep on him. The dude can play.
Absolutely, man. And I know we were not on the air last week, but he also beat the Lions on Thanksgiving. I know
Right.
we talked that game prior to Thanksgiving, and man, this that the Packers just showed up and just completely silenced everything that we talked about that week. But I guess they kept the tradition alive of Packers just beating the Lions every Thanksgiving. Oh man. So we're gonna talk more Packers this week. They're 6-6 and their playoff hopes are very optimistic for them. Let's move on to the final game of Week 13, and is the Cincinnati Bengals upsetting the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-31 in overtime. But man, devastating loss for Jacksonville. They lost not only Christian Kirk but also Trevor Lawrence. He has a high ankle sprain. He might be missing some time at this point. At this point in time, he's week to week. But the Jags, it was a devastating loss, and my heart goes out to all fans of the Jags.
Yeah. Hope Trevor Lawrence heals well. And again, Christian Kirk, man, the groin injury or the core injury rather, had to go into surgery. So he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Is definitely going to be back before him, but keep your heads high, man. You guys are still up in the playoffs, so you guys can still play. It's a full team sport.
It's a full team. It takes a full offense, defense, and special teams to get you there. So, with that being said, that is our Week 13 recap. Man, we are coming near the end of the season. There's so many games on the line. Every game has playoff implications. But we want to start talking Broncos Chargers. This was a game that we definitely had circled on our calendars, especially with our man Ted. Again, Ted, we want to dedicate this at least this segment to you, mate, because there's so much to talk about with the Broncos, so much to talk about with the Chargers. But Chris Palmer, let me start with you, man. Does that loss to the Texans last week, does that hurt their playoff chances, or is there still a path for them to make it to the playoffs?
For the Broncos?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But it starts here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to win this game. This, again, for both, like we said last week and the week prior, from here out, every game is a must win. The entire league is split by half a game
Mm-hmm.
in their respective conferences. So one loss can drop you 3 to 4 places in the playoff bracket. And if you win, it could jump you 2 to 3 spots. So it definitely starts here. And coming off of, I would consider that a good loss. It wasn't a bad loss by any means.
No.
You know, like we've been saying, the Texans have been overproducing all year. They are completely ahead of their time this season. Broncos, they were a very slow burn, and they finally found their motive, but they're going up against a team that's completely overproducing this year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have those good losses. Flip the script to the Chargers, and they had a really bad win. They should have beaten the Patriots by 30. They're equipped to beat the Patriots by 30.
Absolutely.
And you couldn't even get into the red zone until the third quarter. So, in terms of being ready for this game, there isn't much prep work that I feel that the Broncos really need to do looking at the tape from the Chargers-Patriots game.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that was not an anomaly, but that's not good for the Chargers. That is not a good sight for the Chargers to only put up 3 field goals against such a struggling team when you're
2
supposed to be a
field
playoff
goals.
team. Right. Being held to field goals, you're supposed to be a playoff caliber team. You couldn't get into the red zone until the third quarter. You couldn't get to the other side of the 50-yard line until halfway through the second quarter. Justin Herbert had 37 yards going into the second quarter.
Yeah. That was really bad.
Like, come on. And now you're going to catch the Broncos. They may have been tripped up a little bit in that loss to Houston. May have tripped up a little bit. But they are still in full motion. Beelining for that wild card spot in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
They are shooting for it, and they're going to scratch and claw and pin everybody to the floor and get anybody in their way out of their way. And if the Chargers just roll over like they did against the Patriots, this is not going to be an entertaining game for anybody who's a Chargers fan.
No, absolutely not. There is a path for the Broncos to be in the playoffs. So I just want to read you their remaining schedule here, just the opponents that they play. So they play the Chargers this week, then they play the Lions, Patriots, Chargers again, and the Raiders. Realistically, you can win majority of those games and you can be in, but it's also depending on how other teams play themselves in the AFC, because right now the Browns, Colts, and Steelers all hold those wild card spots. Now, granted, the Chargers obviously losing to the Texans, that hurts you because Texans are also on the outside looking into the playoff spot as well. So there is a path for them, and I just want to say, I really like the fact of how improved the Broncos are from this year to last year. Last year, they were a nightmare. They were horrible to watch, and they were given so many primetime games that it was just a slow car crash just on your TV screen, week in and week out. This year, it's a lot more palatable for them to watch them as a team. That Texans game, I was actually enjoying myself watching that Broncos-Texans game. That was a great game to watch. And the Broncos have found an identity. This is something that, you and we spoke about. They have an identity. They are a run team. They are a control team. It's time of possession. Nothing cheap. Nothing. They're not going to get you for a 70-yard bomb touchdown. That's not who they are. They're not like, they don't have a Tyreek Hill that can do that. They don't have. But I will say Russ is playing extremely better than what he was.
He's playing
so
his best
efficient.
football.
He's playing like he was in Seattle, and that's going to win him games. The Russell from Seattle is going to win him games, and he's doing great this year. He's night and day than what he was last year. He has 2,300 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 67 completion rate, 310 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So now, and especially on their winning streak, he is a contributing factor to the run game as well. So he just kind of not only extends plays, but he also participates in the running game himself. Javonte Williams, I want to give a shout out to Javonte Williams. He was out last year on an ACL injury. He's coming back this year. His stats are really nothing eye-popping, but he has 508 yards, but no touchdowns, but 155 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. These players, the Broncos, everyone is a participant in the run game. Everyone is a participant in the pass game. No one's exclusively a wide receiver. No one's exclusively a running back. It's like, look, if you're all gonna run, you're all gonna pass. Their defense has really tightened up since week 3, since they got 70 points dropped on them. They have been allowing 17 points a game. So that defense is really tightening up. The stats won't really jump out at you, right? But they are really doing their job efficiently. It's all about control, time of possession. Make sure the other team has less chances to drive down the field. And that's why most of these Broncos games are low-scoring games, because typically, if you run the ball a lot and effectively week in and week out, you're you would typically get what, like 8 to 10 possessions normally. You cut that down to 6, right? You cut it
Right.
back. So the other team has less chance to drive down the field, and it's working very well. I will say Alex Singleton, linebacker for the Broncos, number 49, he has 122 total tackles, man, assisted and solo. Like he is doing the dirty work right there on that defense. He is just doing the absolute dirty work, and I want to make sure that that is a given. I will say this though, against the Chargers, they have good spots to them. They're not a complete team. Their secondary on their defense is very susceptible to the pass. They have given up the fifth most passing yards in the league. However, they have 41 sacks as a team. That's pretty impressive. Um,
Pretty
and,
impressive throughout.
you know who's coming back this year? Khalil Mack, 15 sacks so far this year.
Shit.
15 sacks for Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa has 6.5. You could double Joey Bosa's, and Khalil Mack is still getting there. And last week against the Patriots, it was all Mack all day. He was eating. He was eating Bailey Zappi alive. So Broncos fans, Ted, talking to you, mate. What's going to be the key difference here is those, not the initial play that's being called. It's the extension of the offensive play. Can Russell scramble a little bit? Can he kind of get separation? Can he kind of look to his third and fourth progression? Those are going to be the plays that are going to be the difference in this Chargers-Broncos game.
I agree with you, but I think this is a game that's really going to be won on the defensive side more than the offensive side. And the reason being is when you look at these two defenses, it's the complexity of the plays that they pull. So in most defenses, it's really a 4-3 league or a 3-4 league where you have 3 people in the dirt and then you have 4 people in the box. These teams, they really like to hide their formations where they have constant motion going on the midfield in on the second level, where they're always running stunts and hitches. And for people who don't understand what I mean by that is when you line up in your defensive formation, you're not standing planted in where you're supposed to be playbook wise. You're moving in and out of the gaps. And what I mean by a stunt is if you're supposed to go through one gap, a stunt is where the person in front of you is actually giving a crisscross type pattern to confuse the offensive lineman. I was watching the highlights of the Bronco game. It was every other defensive play on that highlight reel. They were running a stunt to the weak side. They were running stunts on their weak side tackle all day. And if they get that past the Chargers offensive line, like I can see that clear as day that they like doing weak side stunts. If the Chargers can't adapt to a weak side stunt from the Broncos, they are for a world of hurt. Because that is nasty what they do with their weak side stunts. Because their linebacker core, like you said, is dogs. They do a lot of dirty work, and usually they get home untouched.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos don't necessarily get home often compared to a lot of other teams in the league. They have 28 total sacks as a team, and Nick Bonito leads them in 7.5 sacks. So they're not really, again, studs on defense, but everyone is a participant. Everyone, no responsibility is too great for one person. Everyone is responsible to making sure that everyone is contained on the offensive side of the ball, and that you limit yards after catch. They are that's really what's been the key to their success. It's that simple formula of minimal turnovers, efficient run game with obviously multiple participants there, multiple running backs, quarterback, and everything, and uh, and solid defense. And they are playing very effectively within their winning streak. Obviously, you come across the Texans, and the Texans they're a good team. They're a very solid team, and there's no shame in losing to them. Um, but if the Broncos have any chance to be in the playoffs, you have to beat the Chargers this week. And if you do beat the Chargers this week, you jump to 7-6. Chargers fall to 5-8, and that's really tough for them to come back. You almost bury them at that point. And
Right, like that's almost a burial game.
It is. I mean, it's not, but it's really hard to come back.
It very well could be.
It very well could be. However, if the Broncos lose this game, you fall to 6-7. Chargers go to 6-7, and they take your spot because of that tiebreak. So this game is huge for both teams. It is a must win for both teams. I will say, if the Broncos double Keenan Allen and have someone be responsible for Austin Eckler, you neuter this Chargers offense. Because let me give you a stat, CP. Keenan Allen leads the Chargers in receiving yards. That's not a surprise, right? He has 1,175 receiving yards. Their second leading receiver is Joshua Palmer with 377. That is nearly an 800-yard difference between their first and second receiver. And guess what? Joshua Palmer has been on the IR for the last 3 weeks.
So no one's moved. So he's literally just throwing it to Mike Evans.
He's throwing to Keenan Allen and also Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, though, has stepped up since he's coming back from injury. He has been a dog, but obviously last week against the Patriots, they were able to neuter him, and they were able to neuter that entire offense. Granted, Chargers came away with the win because the Patriots' offense was even worse that day.
Right,
but
count yourself lucky.
Yeah, because if you only put up 6 points to any other team in the league, that's not enough to win.
That's not a win, right?
No, maybe against the Broncos last year, who struggled to put up points, but even still, the Broncos last year are not the Broncos this year. So,
correct. Absolutely,
this game is huge wins, and the Chargers are not the team that they were last year either. So,
and that's in disappointing fashion for the Chargers. You know, you and I were riding very high on the Chargers, and again, it seems like their ceiling has been tapped. You know, they're a middle-of-the-road team, should be playoff bound, probably won't make it, has trouble in the 2-minute game, has trouble in the fourth quarter, has trouble with their offensive line. You know, they have trouble with reading progressions. There's a lot of trouble in the Chargers now that they've come down off of Cloud 9 from last year and the year before.
Yeah. And I will say, you know who that reminds me of? Phillip Rivers Chargers, year in and year out. Where you look at them and it's like...
Justin Herbert is Phillip Rivers.
Where it's like,
100%.
He's going to put up great stats. And Herbert this year, I mean, he has over 3,000 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 228 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. His stats are really good for a quarterback. But they should be better than what they are. But they're just not.
Always.
They have great players on both sides of the ball. Khalil Mack has 15 sacks this year. Derwin James, he has 90 tackles for a safety. He's going unbelievable. But yet they just can't seem to do it against the better competition. And
that's like the legacy of the Chargers.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like the Chargers are just always going to be that team where it's like you want them to be great, but they just can't get there.
There's always something missing.
There's always something missing. Exactly. So, but this game, it's must win for both teams. If you want to make it to the playoffs, you got to have it this game.
This game, it starts here for both of you.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts on this game, CP?
Um, nah, not really. Just this game, it has a chance to be something crazy, but I don't really expect it now. Again, because I feel like the Chargers ceiling has been tapped and the Broncos ceiling is higher.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I think this is going to be a more defensive game. I think whoever gets to 20 points, that's probably going to be your winner. I don't
That'll
see a
probably be
shootout.
it. 2017,
Yeah, it's not
nothing
going to be
crazy.
nothing too crazy, but important nonetheless.
Right.
So, with that being said, let's move on to the second game that you and I wanted to discuss, and that was the Eagles and the Cowboys, the Sunday night primetime game, baby. Woo, man. Chris Paul, I'll let you start off with this one.
You want to talk important, my dude? This may be the single most important game of the year, bar none. Not only is it a division game, this game is for the division, and this could very well be for first place in the NFC. Eagles coming off of that loss this past week, it knocked their chances of owning the first seed in the NFC from a 74% to a 49% chance. Think about
Oh
that shit.
man.
Prior to this past week's game, they had almost a 75% chance to secure their first chance spot. One loss, and now you have less than a 50% chance.
Yeah.
And now they're going into the Cowboys arena where they are now undefeated and they are playing their best football they have played in 20 years. If the Eagles lose, they do a clean swap. And Cowboys go into the first place in the NFC. And the Eagles drop to fifth.
Well, correct me if I'm
And
wrong. Doesn't that go like if both teams tie, it goes to head, right? And then, but their head to head would be split 1-1 because the Eagles beat the Cowboys earlier. Wouldn't that also then go to conference wins and or conference losses? Because I think um
I'm not
with the
positive on that, I'll be honest with you.
okay, because I
I'm not
know,
positive.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's a clean swap, but man, it hurts their first seed chances.
They would 100% drop out of the first seed. I know that for sure.
Oh yeah,
Um,
especially if San Fran wins as well this week
right.
against Seattle.
I'm pretty sure it would be a clean swap. I'm not 100% on it. But even still, like the Cowboys going and winning another game at home and continuing their undefeated streak. Hats off to the Cowboys, man. This is like I just said, this is the best football they've played in 20 years. We've never seen a Cowboys team this good.
I mean, there have been a lot of really good Cowboys teams in at least in our lifetime. 2016, Dak and Zeke's rookie year, they were absolutely a force to be reckoned with. They were 13-3 that year. 2014 with DeMarco Murray having an absolute monster year for the Cowboys, ending in Lambeau against the Dez no catch game. Um, Cowboys they've had some really good teams, but I will say this though, their defense is scary. It is absolutely scary. And yes, their defense did not really show up on against last Thursday against the Seahawks, but that's okay because you're not going to get it every week. Even Ray Lewis said it. Even with that 2000 Ravens defense, it's like, hey, some weeks the defense just didn't have it, and the offense had to step up, and that's what they did. That's what the Cowboys did last Thursday. Offense stepped up. They could have easily just not put up 41 points on the Seahawks. They could have lost that game
right.
by 20, but they stepped up when it needed to. And I agree with your assessment, man. Like this Cowboys team is probably the best that we've seen in 20 years.
Right. And this Eagles team is no fucking team to tilt your head at either. You know, Jalen Hurts is 100% an MVP candidate. That defense is totally lethal, and again, it's a fucking division game. So that just adds to it. This game could very easily turn into the game of the year candidate. There's so much riding on this game.
It easily could be game of the year. And I've been saying this entire week that this game is colossal, absolutely colossal in the implications for the playoffs. Now, there's no shame in both of these teams just getting trounced by San Francisco. San Francisco is probably going to be the number one seed, despite these two teams. San Fran beat both of these teams, the Cowboys and the Eagles, by 84-29. That is, think about that. San Fran beat both the Eagles and the Cowboys by 84-29. That is disgusting. But that's just how good San Fran is. And there's no shame to losing to them. I mean, we kind of anticipated that. But I think that if both of these teams meet San Francisco again, it's not going to be a blowout. Because both of these teams are smart, savvy, and have the talent to match up for them. And it's funny, too, because with that win against the Seahawks last week, Dak now vaulted himself into MVP territory. A lot of people
now
are
he's
really
in the MVP conversation.
And, I mean, he rightfully should be. Let me just go through the numbers real quick. So, both him and Hurts are having an explosive season amongst the two of them. For Dak, his total yards between rushing and passing, he has 3,408 yards, 28 touchdowns. That is insane, right? Jalen Hurts has 3,425 yards, 31 touchdowns. Insane. Again, these guys are absolutely explosive. And it's funny because a couple weeks ago when it was Eagles, Kansas City, I was like, whoever leads this is probably going to lead MVP. Now that's shifted to this game.
I think that's this conversation, right?
It's not going to be this. Like, whoever wins this game is probably going to lead the MVP race. Now, a lot of people have really died down on Jalen Hurts for MVP, but I would still pick Jalen Hurts as MVP for this year. That's just me because of just how valuable he is to the Eagles. Like, this Eagles team would not look the same if under any other quarterback. The Cowboys have even shown that even in the absence of Dak, they could still win games. Last year, Cooper Rush was like, hey, Cooper Rush is winning games, man. Like, that's
right. He's winning them games.
Yeah, so, and that's nothing against Dak either. Like, Dak has always been a great quarterback. And me personally, I always think he gets shit on a lot because he's a Cowboy. But even still, he's a great player. And he should be in the MVP conversation because he rightfully deserves it. What I love about this game is that both of these teams match up so well against each other. And they're going to challenge what the other team does well. Like, that Dallas defense is going to challenge that running game, and vice versa. That running game is going to challenge that Dallas defense. Now, Philly did not run it very well against the Niners. They were actually very piss poor running the ball against the 49ers. But I think we're going to see that pick up a little bit because how do you beat a great pass rush? You run the ball. You make sure that those edge rushers don't get to your quarterback. And those tackles kind of swing a little too far away. Micah Parsons is a little bit behind, and then you have DeAndre Swift kind of running up the middle. So I really like how it's going to fare up. And I think Dallas's wide receivers are also going to challenge that Philly secondary. Now, Philly's defense, that concerns me a lot. Their defense is not the same as it was last year. They have the 22nd ranked defense this year. Think about that. They have a bottom 10 defense. The Eagles. And I've been saying this all season. Teams can throw on Philly. Washington put up 30 points against Philly both times. Almost
Mm-hmm.
beat them, too. Philly is leaving the door open for teams to beat them. And it's with that defense. And yes, Kevin Byard was a great pickup. But it seems that he's not enough. They need a lot more from that secondary. Their pass rush is great too. I like their pass rush, but their secondary just gives up too many yards, man.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, but a lot of people, they look at the Eagles and they want them to be the team they were last year. And I've been saying it since we started this year that just wasn't going to be it. They got rid of too many pieces after the Super Bowl for them to be the same team. Specifically on the defensive side. They dropped so many people on the defense in order to try and get Jalen Carter in the draft. And then they wound up pretty much regretting that by having to go for Kevin Byard at the end because they had no secondary. And they still really don't have much of a secondary. They have no second level in linebacking core. The pass rush will give. It's pretty decent. But that's not going to be enough on the defensive side. Now you flip the script to the Cowboys defense. They have pieces everywhere. And they have journeymen all over the place that are just ready to be physical. They're one of the most physical defenses in the league right now. And it's not
absolutely.
Close. So you take the physicality of the Cowboys of their defense, and then you take the grittiness of their offense. They are prepped and primed for a fucking deep playoff run. And I think all of those moves at the end of the year last year are for the Eagles are going to come to haunt them at the end of the year this year. And I think last week was the first case of that.
Yeah, I mean, you lose both your offensive and defensive coordinator. You lose
4 or 5 defensive pieces.
4 or 5 defensive pieces. What was it? Hargrave. Hargrave was
right.
a monster for them last year. And now guess where he is? He's in San Fran. Absolutely just
right. Still being a monster.
Still being a monster. I will say they do have big play Slay, but again, you know what defense aside from the Eagles it reminds me of? Okay, you have a defense with a great pass rush, but you give up too many pass yards. You know what defense that is? That's the Chargers defense. That's exactly what
100%.
That's exactly what
100%.
we talked about with the Chargers, where it's like they have a great pass rush and they can get to the quarterback, but that secondary, teams can throw on them, and that's exactly what they are. Again, Eagles have a bottom 10 defense. They give up too many yards each game, and I think you have Dak, he's going to throw the ball. He's throwing it to CD all day. He's throwing to Michael Gallup all day. Brandon Cooks. Yeah. And their rookie, Jake Ferguson. You know what? You're going to get some sugar too. He's going to spread the ball out, and that's really going to challenge that secondary, man. And again, is Dak going to throw a pick? Probably. I mean, he does. He's not.
He throws it ugly sometimes. It is what it is.
He throws it ugly sometimes, but you know what? He's only thrown 6 this year. That's pretty efficient.
That's fucking efficient as hell.
I think, but what gets me too is the turnover differential. Dallas has a +8 turnover differential, so they're taking the ball far more than they're giving it up. Philly has a -2. They're giving it up too much. They're not taking it that much. And as I think, Sunday night primetime, one pick in the fourth quarter, it's going to change it all. It's going to change not only the outcome of the game, but it's going to change the whole trajectory of the NFC. So,
all eyes on Trayvon Diggs to make that big play.
Well, no, Deron Bland, man. He leads the league in pick sixes, man.
In pick sixes, yes. I'll give him his credit where credit is due. Trayvon Diggs is a better defenseman.
Yes. I will also say, don't forget, Malik Hooker as a safety, as the free safety. People sleep on Malik Hooker, man, but he's so good. He's that savvy vet that's lurking in the backfield. Where as soon as you forget about him, boom.
Right.
So, man, this game was meant to be prime time, and I'm so glad it is. Um, I cannot wait for this game.
This is a game where there's going to be fireworks. I could absolutely see this being a game of the year candidate.
Absolutely. So, any final thoughts on this game?
Nope, just keep your head up because this game is going to be interesting for 4 quarters straight.
Okay. Awesome. So, with that being said, let's move on to the final game that we wanted to discuss, and that is the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants. Um, I think it's worthy talking about both of these teams at this point in time. This is the Monday night game. This is actually one of two Monday night games. We actually get a double dose of Monday night football, and this is one of them. Um, man, Giants fans, your season this is it right here, this game, and it might be sad because you're probably going to give birth to a star, and that star might be Jordan Love. This Giants defense is horrible. Is absolutely horrible. Teams are just marching up and down the field on them. Granted, they have tightened up in the last couple weeks, but man, their competition has not been the best. Obviously, you got Tommy DeVito, and it's nice seeing the Italian gesture. You get a little bit of life there. But Green Bay is just a better team, offensively, defensively, and now they have a lot of young players that are ready to win, and they are in playoff contention. Their playoff hopes are alive, especially after not only that Thanksgiving game, also that game against Kansas City. They are beating great competition. The Giants, you guys are beating the Patriots, Washington. So granted, nothing to poo-poo about. You guys are getting wins then without, Daniel Jones, but let's be honest here. Green Bay is coming into town, and they are coming into town hot. I just hope for Giants fans, you make the right decisions in the offseason, because the decisions that are made through the executives, the general manager, the coaches, that affects everything that happens this year. You guys invested so much into Daniel Jones, but you didn't invest in wide receivers. You didn't invest in an offensive line. Your offensive line is as bad as the Jets is. And that's not a compliment. So you got to beef up that line. And this might be the last year with Saquon. Saquon, you gave him a franchise tag. He wants money. And I think if teams give him that contract with good money, he could be on another team. You know what team I think would actually be very, very good for Saquon to join? The Broncos. Get him a good offensive line behind that runs the ball, that likes to run the ball. Yeah, I'd like to see that. But that's a speculation for another day. But Giants fans, I'm sorry, man. It's not been a pretty year, especially after the year that you guys had last year. It looked very optimistic, but last year was the anomaly. Last year was not the standard, and we've been saying that year in and year out. It's like, is it the anomaly or is it the standard? And Giants fans, since that last Super Bowl in over a decade ago, it's been miserable. And my heart goes out to you because you guys deserve better. Absolutely. And it seems that Green Bay, as soon as they get rid of Rodgers, another great quarterback is coming right through the door in Jordan Love. Is he great? He's great this season so far. Is he going to be what Aaron Rodgers is? Who knows? It's hard to say. It's very early. But with Green Bay coming to town after a chest puff of a victory, man, last week against the Chiefs, you guys are at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, the Giants are about to get caught in a crossfire they don't necessarily deserve to be caught in. Um, this could very well be a breakout game for Jordan Love. And this will probably be a send home game for the Giants. This will probably end their playoff contention because they're still statistically in as of today. But I think come Monday of next week, they will be statistically eliminated from the playoffs because Green Bay is showing up to steamroll them and continue to climb their ladder. I want to take a second to really give appreciation to Jordan Love. You know, for the year since he's been drafted, everyone has always thrown the question mark of can he play? Can he play? Can he do it? Will he be able to fill the shoes of Aaron Rodgers? And then all of the issues with Aaron Rodgers started in Green Bay. And then the breath of fresh air came when Aaron Rodgers ultimately left Green Bay. And then the questions came in with Jordan Love coming in at starter. Can he play? Started out a little rough. And then they got our attention. We said it on here when they got our attention. I don't necessarily remember what game it was, but they played very well. They came away with a win. And we both said, you have our attention.
It
Don't
was
fuck
week
it up.
1 against the Bears where he threw 3 touchdowns.
No, because then after that, remember, they kind of veered off for a couple weeks. I think it was like week 5 or 6.
That's right. That's right.
You
I
know,
know
they after week 1, they played really well, and they had my attention from week 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of considered that one an anomaly because they played a couple of really crappy games. Then like week 5 or 6, they had like a really, really strong game.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, okay, you have my attention again.
I think it was against the Chargers when they beat the Chargers 23-20. That was a couple weeks ago.
Right. That was an attention grab.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, it's just been uphill. And then now they're full speed. They're full speed ahead. You know, it's a bunch of young guys with now a young quarterback who is there, willing to put the work in, dedicate the time with. It's not an old sour vet being mad at a bunch of young guys anymore. So there's an even playing field. I was talking to a friend of mine who is actually a Packers fan, and I told him, I was like, listen, like I was saying on this podcast, they are a slow burn. You can't expect instant from them. This has been a long time coming and a slow burning season for them. But it's the slow burns that burn the longest.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be, this is going to be a steamroll of a game, and it's only going to help the momentum of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and I will say, look, I'll play devil's advocate here. Is there a chance for the Giants? Yes,
there's always a chance.
But here's the thing: your defense has to come out, and that's the thing. Is like your defense has to come out and has to stop anything that they try. Now, AJ Dillon, he's getting a lot of momentum right now. Christian Watson, he's getting a lot of momentum now. I will say
Dobbs. Everybody.
Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed. There's a lot of great young players for the Packers that if you stop one, it's like whack-a-mole. If you stop one, can you stop the other? It's just you got to keep up. You just got to keep up. And the Packers are, I will say, I got to give a shout out to Matt LaFleur, their head coach. He is proving that he is an adaptable head coach. And those are the head coaches that are extremely successful in this league, are the coaches that are able to adapt to different personnel week in and week out. And year to year too, because every team is different year to year. Like this Green Bay Packers team is not the Green Bay Packers team that it was last year. Last year, for the Packers, when they were 6-6, it was quite disappointing. And yet, here we are this year, Packers 6-6. It's very optimistic, and every team is different year to year.
Yeah.
And the Giants last year, they were hot. They beat my Ravens. I was at that game when they beat my Baltimore Ravens, and I was like, I told you the following week, I'm like, that's a playoff team right there. This year,
Not even close.
it is far from that, far from a playoff team.
Yeah, I gotta absolutely agree with you. Hats off to Matt LaFleur, but more so for finding the trust in Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
He saw something throughout this year where he came to accept, look, it's not going to be clean. He's going to throw ugly passes. He's going to throw an ugly interception down the middle. It's going to happen. But outside of that, you're going to find someone who can throw it 10, 15 yards down the field on a zip line to where only the receiver can catch it 85% of the time.
Yep.
Someone who's not afraid to throw the ball, not afraid to throw it very hard, very fast, and very far for their receivers to grab.
Mm-hmm.
And once you decided to like take off the cuffs and go back and let him set loose, it became fun for Jordan Love again. So now they're all just out there having fun.
Yeah.
And letting something happen.
I think the key word there is trust too, because when a head coach has trust in the quarterback, he's able to not only make those throws, but he's able to know that his job is not like it's not going to cost him his job if he makes a mistake. For instance, the Jets have no
like
faith in Zach Wilson. They have no trust in him at all. We moved to Tim Boyle. He's been crapping the bed. Let's move to Trevor Siemian in the same game.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. And then it's like, oh, well, both of these quarterbacks didn't work. Zach Wilson, can you come back? He's like, fuck you guys. You guys don't trust me.
He's notably reluctant, and can't blame him.
Matt LaFleur could have easily benched Jordan Love when they were losing games in the first half of the year. But he stuck around. He said, "No, you are our guy. We are going to keep you, and you're going to play week in and week out." And that's huge for a quarterback for his first starting year. A young guy to be like, "Okay, you know what? I'm here to learn with the team, and we're going to try to win games. Let's do it." And sometimes it just takes one play to change a whole career. And for me, that one specific play for Jordan Love was that catch to Christian Watson in the Chiefs game. He was falling away off his feet, just off balance, throws a dime in the back of the end zone, inches above the defender's hands to only where Christian Watson could catch it. And to me, I'm like,
you can't ask for a better throw.
You cannot ask for a better throw. And to me, I'm like, that has changed the whole trajectory of not only the Packers, but Jordan Love's career. That one play. And hats off to him, man, because like it could have easily, the Packers could have easily just folded. But no, they are here. And I think the Lions are even be like, well, we were supposed to run away with this division.
I don't think we're running. It's going to be a marathon sprint now.
You're not running away just yet. So it's still we still got 5 weeks left. No, sorry. Yeah, 5 weeks left, including this week. And there's a lot that can happen from now until then.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Any final thoughts on this game, CP?
Just keep an eye out, man. Possible breakout game for Jordan Love.
Absolutely.
Very, very interesting.
Absolutely. So with that being said, those are the games that we wanted to discuss this week. Ted, would have loved to have you on, man, and we still hope we can have you on at some point in the season to talk some Broncos. But with that being said, let's move on to our Week 14 picks for this week. So, Chris Palmer, you ready to make some picks?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, as he reluctantly says, get you another chicken tender, my friend, because I know you're hungry. And I know your Steelers are hungry for a win on Thursday night. Do they get a win over the New England Patriots Thursday night?
God, I fucking hope so. I'm gonna go for them to win, but I don't like the idea of Mitch Trubisky being in the quarterback. Everyone knows what he is. Very reckless with the ball, but I'm definitely gonna take him over McSorley.
Yeah, Trace McSorley. I'll be honest, I never really liked Trace McSorley as a quarterback, but I saw a good fair share of him when Lamar has been injured over the years. I'll take your Steelers as well. I think you know what it is trust, like you and I just said. Mike
Right.
Tomlin
Gotta
trusts
trust.
Mitchell Trubisky to step up, whereas Bill Belichick does not trust Mac Jones. Therefore, he's putting in Bailey Zappi. He's like, "Hey, you're all I got, kid. I don't trust this other kid."
Right.
And I I think when it comes down to it, next man up. I think Tomlin's guys step up, and I think you guys
I agree.
come away with the win over the New England Patriots. It's not going to be a pretty game, but
By
it'll
any
be
means.
a win nonetheless. So let's move on to New York, where the Houston Texans take on the New York Jets. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Houston. By a
Houston?
large margin.
Uh,
By a large margin.
ooh. Let's
Zach
see if
Wilson is
CJ
confirmed
Stroud
he
stats
will be
those
starting.
pads. Oh, was Zach Wilson?
Yeah, Zach Wilson is confirmed he will be starting on Sunday.
Ooh. Oh man, I'm taking the Texans as well, man. As much like we've talked about the Packers burying the Giants, I think the Texans kind of bury the Jets here. So it's
Yeah,
not
this
going to
is
be a
the end
pretty
for
game.
New York football this week.
Well, it could be for Buffalo as well, but we'll get to them too. But New York football, you got some other teams out there. But
Right.
uh, let's move on to Baltimore, to Charm City, where the Los Angeles Rams take on the Baltimore Ravens. Chris Palmer, who you got?
I'm gonna give it to you guys. I'm gonna give it to the Ravens, but this is gonna be a lot closer of a game than I think people expect.
You know what? I kind of hope it's a close game. Full disclosure, I'm actually going to be at this game this
You're going to
Sunday.
this game?
Yeah, I'm going to this game.
Oh shit!
I'm going with my man Nick Bates. Shout out to Nick Bates, baby. So we're
Well, have
going
a
to
good
Charm
time, you
City.
two.
Oh, this is going to be a great game, brother. It's I'm looking forward to this. I'm taking my Ravens too, but man, I like the way the Rams have been playing as of late. They are Matt Stafford in that offense. They are really been clicking. Puka Nakua, Cooper Cup, you guys have been really putting it on. It's good defenses, especially the Cleveland defense. That's the number one defense in the league. Um, but of course, I'm going to go with my Ravens. I can't not go to this game and pick the Rams. So
Very nice.
it's
Hope you two have
it's
a
going
good
to be
time.
it's going to be a great time. Believe me, you're going to hear all about it, man. We're going to send a lot of pictures. So with that being said, let's move on to New Orleans, where the Carolina Panthers take on the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go with the Saints on this one. I just think that they have a lot more on the line than Carolina does. Carolina is statistically eliminated. They are not going to be in the playoffs this year. But the Saints still have a chance, but they have to win this game to keep themselves alive. Chris Palmer, who you got?
I'm gonna go with the Saints, but I would not be surprised if the Panthers somehow, some way played spoiler and ended their playoff contention too.
Hey man, you can't sleep on the Panthers, man. They're staying alive, baby. They're staying alive.
They just got nothing to lose, so it's like fuck it. Why not? It's like the tank for two with Dolphins.
Oh my God. Well, these guys are tanking for the Bears now, but
They're tanking for a second round pick this year.
pretty
It's okay.
much. Okay, let's move on to Cincinnati, where the Bengals take on the Colts. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Ooh, this one's actually a very interesting game. I almost wanted to talk this game,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna go the Colts. I think the Colts are gonna walk away with this one. No Joe Burrow, no T Higgins. Yeah, I think the Colts are gonna walk away with this one.
I gotta say, I really liked how the Bengals looked against Jacksonville. They're they put a lot of faith into Joe Mixon, and he's been really eating a lot of field since Joe Burrow's absence, which they should. They should start giving him more touches. Um, Jamar Chase, he stepped up in big time, and I gotta say, Jake Browning has looked like a really good quarterback. But give me that Minshew magic, baby. I'm going with the Colts as well. They're just so scrappy, man. No matter who they play week in and week out, they are just a scrappy team that I think that if they enter the playoffs, I don't think any team really wants to play against them. It's like, well, they could just win. So I'm
Right.
gonna go with the Colts as well to beat the Bengals. Let's move on to an NFC South matchup: the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Atlanta Falcons. Um, Bucks are still kind of in contention. They're 5-7. They are still alive for the playoffs, but it's the NFC South. It's not. There's no runaway lead. So if the Bucks want to be in playoffs, they have to beat Atlanta this week. But Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Give me the Falcons on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming into Atlanta, they're 500. Bucks are a little bit under 500. Coming into the Atlanta Dome, I think Atlanta could win that one.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna go with Atlanta as well. I just think that they have a ground and pound game that just seems to work, and I like their rotation of backs between Bijan, Tyler Algier, and Cordell Patterson. They have great running backs, and I think it's going to be a very low scoring game, but a very fun game to watch nonetheless. Um, let's move on to the AFC with the Cleveland Browns taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Joe Flacco taking on possibly CJ Beathard or Trevor Lawrence. We won't really know until it comes closer to game day. But Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Mm, Give me the Jags. I'm hoping that the Jags can beat the Browns and knock them down another peg in our division. Um. So yeah, I'm gonna put some hope into the Jags this week.
Okay, I respect it. I'm gonna go with the Cleveland Browns, actually. Not yes, Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback for the Browns, but it's not because of that. That Jags defense really upset me last week. The Bengals just had their way, running the ball, passing the ball. It it that defense just did not tighten up and did not look good. I'm gonna go with Cleveland. I think that they're gonna tighten up on defense. They're gonna keep running the ball, and it's really gonna challenge the Jags this upcoming week. Um, so I'm gonna go with the Browns. Let's move on to the Windy City, where the Detroit Lions take on the Chicago Bears. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Detroit. Detroit's gonna win by a large margin here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Detroit as well. I just think they're the better team than Chicago. Simply put.
Simply put, they're the best team right now.
I
One of
don't.
the
Oh,
best
I don't
teams.
know them. I was gonna say they're the best
One
out
of the
of
best teams. Sorry.
yeah. So, let's move on to what might be the best team in the league: San Francisco taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Uh, I'm going to go with San Fran on this one. It's tough to sweep a divisional opponent, but I think San Fran is just talented enough that they can do it. Seattle comes to town, and this is their second time in 3 weeks that these two teams play. I'll take San Fran on this.
Yeah, get the brooms out. 49ers about to sweep.
Yeah. 49ers have been bird hunting as of late. Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks, and then they eventually play the Ravens too. So 49ers are just bird hunting at this point. Let's move on to Vegas with the Minnesota Vikings and the Las Vegas Raiders. Um, Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Mm, I'm gonna go with Minnesota on this one. I feel like the Vikings are more well rounded this year.
Mhm.
The Raiders are still kind of in some disarray. There's some problems still going on over there. So yeah, give me the Vikings.
I'm going to take the Vikings as well. One notable name that we have not really talked about this year is Justin Jefferson. After he's been
Comes
out
back
since
this
week
week, right?
5, he comes back this week. So let's see if he gives the Vikings that spark to what they need. I'm taking the Vikings as well. I think Josh Dobbs, he's still a great quarterback, and I don't think one bad game should cost him his job in Minnesota. They should keep to Dobbs. You traded to get him for a reason. Let him run the table.
Let it rip.
So okay, moment of truth, baby. Denver Broncos versus Los Angeles Chargers. Just Palmer, who you got?
Give me Denver. I can't go with the Chargers. I can't trust them right now.
Man, this game, I feel like it could go either way. It could go Denver, it could go Chargers, it could just. I'm gonna go with the Chargers. Ted, I'm sorry, my brother. I'm so sorry. I've been going back and forth on this. I probably shouldn't go with the Chargers, but I will because this is a do or die game for them. And I think, being that it's in LA, weather's not really a factor. And man, Khalil Mack, man, he's just on fire. I'm gonna take the Chargers. Probably shouldn't. Ted, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. I let you down. Let's move on to Kansas City, where the Buffalo Bills take on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a pretty do or die game for Buffalo. If they lose this game and Miami wins on Monday night, then their chances for the division are slim to none. It's not done completely, but it's going to be extreme. There's no margin for error at that point. I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think Kansas City gets it done. It's hard for Kansas City to lose back-to-back games, and their offense has been struggling, but I just think they're better than the Bills this year.
Yeah, give me Kansas City too, man. I trust them in Arrowhead after a bad loss more than I trust a lot of teams coming off of a loss.
Yeah.
You can almost guarantee that them playing at Arrowhead is going to be playing with a whole different motor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game. Eagles and Cowboys. All the marbles on the table. Possible game of the year. Colossal game. Chris Palmer. Who you got?
It's hard. This one's so hard. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, man. Cowboys at home. It kind of shot me in the foot last week when I went for the Eagles with home field advantage. We weren't on the podcast to hear that. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Cowboys on this one, man. They're hot.
Oh my God! Did I die? Chris Palmer's taking the Cowboys? What? In a do or die game? Holy! What? Who are you? What have you done with Chris Palmer, man?
This is going to be the answer if they can beat succeeding teams. This is the succeeding team. If you can beat them, you shut everybody up.
Man,
everybody up.
This game is hard. It's so hard to pick, bro. I've been thinking about this game all day, and I'm still going to be thinking about this one up until Sunday night. You can make an argument for either. But I, too, am going to go Dallas. And the reason being is because I'm a defensive guy. I trust that Cowboys defense more than I trust that Eagles defense. Both offenses are great. Both quarterbacks are playing out of their gourd. And I still stand by my statement that I still lean towards Jalen Hurts as the MVP. But give me Dallas, man. Something about Sunday night primetime Dallas, it just is too alluring.
It's got too nice of a ring to it.
I know. I hope this is only the second of third matchup between these two teams this year. I hope
there's a third one in January.
I hope there's a third matchup in January between these two teams because these two teams, it's so worthy to have them be in a playoff game against each other. So
I agree.
Oh yeah. So let's move on to Monday night. We have two Monday night games. Soon we'll be getting Saturday games, but we start with this week. We have 2 Monday night games. Packers, Giants. I'm going Pack, baby. Go Pack, go. Chris Palmer, who you got?
Packers on the way, man. You got to catch them on the climb.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, man. And the second Monday night primetime game, the Tennessee Titans versus the Miami Dolphins. Chris Palmer, who you got?
I'm going to go with Miami, and I'm going to give a shout-out to my MVP candidate, Tyreek Hill, baby. I know the MVP is more or less becoming a QB award, but this man is on pace for 2,000 yards. He's my MVP candidate.
I think if he breaks that record, if he gets 2,000 yards, the first receiver ever to get 2,000 yards, I think you kind of have to give it to him at this point. But, but man, he is absolutely scorching teams, and I don't think the Titans have any answer for it. Will Levis, I'm sorry, you have been put in a very precarious situation because Miami is just steamrolling.
I want to take a second just for Will Levis.
Okay.
If you don't start distributing the ball a little bit more, you're going to find yourself back on the bench. I want you to know that as a fact. Fucking go having a 50% completion rating when half of your passes completed were to one person.
He's still rookie, man. He's still got time to learn, but yeah, you got to spread that sugar, man. You got to spread that sugar.
You got to distribute the ball.
Traylon Burks is like, hey, I ain't chop liver over here.
Who you got, my son?
I got Miami. Come on, man. Tyreek, Tua, Mostert, Waddle. And I want to give a shout out to Van Ginkel, man. He's been killing it on defense.
I agree.
He had a pick six last week against Washington, and he's the gink. The gink. Oh, man. Okay, so with that being said, that is our Week 14 picks. We hope you really enjoyed this episode. Again, Ted, we love you, brother. We hope that you're able to come join us on this podcast some other time. But man, it's been a great ride. All these games have massive implications to them. Chris Palmer, what do you got to say, man?
This week is going to be fun. Playoffs are in the air, and each game feels more and more like a playoff game. We're going to start seeing the fat being trimmed from the list, and we're going to start seeing the real contenders start to show themselves, and this is where it starts right now. There's 1 month left. That's it.
That is it. So, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. Please support the channel. And if you want to be a guest on Let's Talk Football, please get in contact with either myself or Chris Palmer. We'd love to have you on. We have some other guests in a couple weeks. Hopefully no technical difficulties to get them on. But with that being said, yeah, man, I'm excited for this week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So until then, we will see you next week.